Good afternoon, everyone in Europe. Good morning to those of you in the US, and good evening to those of you listening in Asia and Australia. I am Pablo.zuanic, equity analyst at Zuanic & Associates, following the cannabis sector. We have a very distinguished panel today to discuss specifically the German market, but also Europe. So we're talking here to three leading operators. We have Sascha Mielcarek, he's the CEO at Canify AG. We have Constantin von der Groeben, he's a co-founder and strategic advisor at Demecan. And we have Philippe Schetter, he's CEO and Cantourage Group. Welcome to all the three speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for our audience, as usual, I will ask most of the questions. We will take some of your questions through email, through Twitter. You can also put them here in the chat room if you're listening through Zoom. But we'll start first with introductions and background on your company, whatever you can share. I'll start with Constantin first.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Pablo. So I co-founded Demecan. We started out as a cultivator of medical cannabis in Germany, applied for a cultivation license back in 2017. We're awarded the license in 2019 and have since grown the business. Developed it from mere cultivation to a processing hub in Germany, also do imported medical cannabis and have a fully fledged lab that does all sorts of laboratory services for the medical cannabis world. Yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's it. We've had a promising and profitable year last year, and we're now very excited about 2026, despite all the regulatory changes that are looming on the horizon.
That's good. Thank you. Philippe, go ahead.
Yeah, also, Pablo, thanks for having me. Just real quick, so my name is Philippe Schetter. I'm the CEO of the Cantourage Group. Cantourage is an importer, manufacturer, and wholesaler of cannabis-based medicine, and we also run telemedicine platforms. For the time being, we're mainly active in Germany, the UK, and Poland, and have roughly 100 employees. In 2024, we did roughly 50 million euros of revenue, and the market estimate for 2025 was also hovering at 90 million euros revenue. And we are profitable since a couple of years. And also since 2022, we're listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Really looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. Sascha, go ahead, please.
Yeah, last but not least, so also thanks for having me, Pablo. Sascha Mielcarek, I'm the CEO of Canify. Canify has been founded in 2018 and is basically working along the full value chain of medical cannabis, with the exception of cultivation. So we don't cultivate, status today. But yes, we do import, we process, we sell under our own brand. We do white label to our partners. We do market and distribute, and we also entertain our own clinic platform, which is one of the topics I'm sure we will discuss today. We had, as the others, a profitable 2025. Nobody has clear figures, but we do believe to represent 10% of the German market, which is our home turf and our focus point today.
That's great. Thank you. Sascha, I want to stay with you. Obviously, the discussion, the focus is mostly Germany, but let's talk first outside of Germany. Talk about any operations you may have outside Germany. If you can disclose what % of your revenues are coming from outside Germany at present, and what are your plans for 2026 outside of Germany, if any?
Yeah, it's similar markets to those Philip has mentioned, which I think has mostly a regulatory background. So if, let's say, you get access to the compounding market in Germany, you more or less automatically get access also to the UK and Switzerland, where we do have standing supply agreements. And then Poland is for sure an interesting market, a bit more complex. And congratulations to Cantourage I think you entered 2 years ago, right? So we are working on our entry book still. There's full submissions to be delivered to the Polish government, which takes a bit longer time. We do believe that still this year we will start making business in Poland, asking for the revenue share, let's say, giving the boom in Germany. Above 90% of our sales are done in Germany, and the last months, if we had the choice where to sell, we looked for the best pricing, and we still found it in Germany. So that's why most of our revenues are done there.
Sascha, I'll just stay with you there. I mean, just brief follow-up, but So in terms of those other markets, you would import the product into Germany, do EU GMP in Germany, and then reship to wherever it may be, UK or Poland. That's the plan? That's the way you would do it? Or would you ship
Not only
it
the
back?
plan, that's not only the plan, that's how we operate. So as we process in Germany, we are a perfect importing hub for the whole European Union, and then can entertain the German market or as well other European markets from our side in the south of Germany.
Right. Thank you. Philip, same question for you, and it'd be great to know I think you mentioned a 50 million revenue number. If you could say, what percent of that comes outside of Germany, but whatever you can share. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, so 50 million was in 2024, and 2025 was, let's say, in the high 80s, as per the current market estimate.
Right.
As we're growing massively in 2025 as well, while being profitable. And some of that revenue also came from, let's say, our activities in Poland and the UK. In the UK, we have also an import business. We also wholesale and run a telemedicine clinic. And in Poland, we're currently collaborating with a wholesale partner in order to supply the market. But very active also in the Polish space, and now a couple of products online and planning on introducing additional ones. Very, very optimistic about the future growth of the Polish and the UK market, as we're doubling down on those markets where markets are booming and prices are fairly high. We foresee that those markets will contribute to the revenue and also especially to the profit of the Cantourage Group in the upcoming years.
Right. And the same question I asked Sascha, in terms of supply chain, you bring it to Germany, GMP in Germany, and then reship, or are you shipping direct to some of those markets?
Fortunately or unfortunately, we ran out of capacity in our manufacturing hub in Germany. So we had to integrate additional partners in our supply chains, and they are mostly located outside of Germany in order to supply the UK and to a certain degree also our German operation.
Right. So you would be doing GMP mostly in places like Portugal and those that, or not?
So mostly in our hub in Germany, but we also, I think it's public knowledge, we're also collaborating with a CMO in Portugal. We've now integrated additional players into our supply chain in order to be cost efficient to some degree, be flexible, and have sufficient capacity to support growing markets like the UK and Germany.
Right. Look, and again, the questions here is whatever you want, you can, and what you want to disclose. And I realize that Cantourage is also a public company. In the case of the UK, still very nascent but exciting market. In the case of Curaleaf, they also have an online pharmacy, right? Which makes them even more forward integrated. Is that something you would be looking at?
Not as of today. We feel very comfortable with our positioning in the UK as we speak. So we focus on the importing bit, on our wholesale bit, and on the telemedicine play. But always evaluating if we should integrate along the supply chain. So obviously talking about pharmacies, but it's let's say not in our current planning, but that might change if we see it fit into our strategy.
Right.
But rest assured, UK exciting market. I think we are very well positioned. The UK team does a phenomenal job there. Definitely like our chances in the UK for the upcoming years.
That's great. Thank you. Constantin, an update on your side in terms of what you're doing outside of Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say we're probably closer to Sascha and Canify, being laser focused on the German market, especially in the past year. We have sold internationally, mainly to Switzerland. There's ideas to start operations in Poland and the UK as we observe these markets, and we do see growth there too. I'd be curious to hear more details from Philip. Nevertheless, I think Germany is the growth market number one regarding volume, regarding price, and giving our production in Germany. It's also the easiest market for us to access. So over 90% of our sales were in Germany, and we'll remain committed and focused on Germany.
Right, understood. Thank you. So look, I'm going to move the discussion now to the regulatory changes in Germany that were proposed by the Minister of Health, Nina Warken. I hope I got the last name right. I'm going to read the questions, and then the three of you can comment. I'll start with Constantin. Discuss the changes that she proposed. What were the changes and your opinions about them? It seems the process has stalled, given pushback from the Bundestag. What is your prognosis? How this plays out in terms of timetable? When does this finally get done in terms of the changes? And what are the actual final changes, right? And so far, I know that none of this is official yet, but have the changes that she proposed had any impact in the current market at all? I'll start with you, Constantin. I know there's a lot there.
Yeah, I can take a first stance at that. So there's pretty much two things she wants to change, and it's both driven by the high import numbers in Germany for the medical cannabis market. That, for some reason, seemed to have been an indicator for her that there's some of the medical cannabis that's coming to Germany now, the rapid growth, that might not go to patients, but to quasi-patients or consumers. And she's focused there on the telemedicine prescription, which does drive a lot of the growth in the medical cannabis market. And two changes she wants to implement to restrict the telemedicine prescription of medical cannabis. Restriction number one is a ban on shipping for pharmacies. So you'd have to go to your pharmacy in person to pick up your cannabis prescription. And change number two, you can't prescribe it online via a questionnaire or via video consultation anymore. So a restriction on the doctors, but you at least have to pay a doctor one physical visit a year. So basically, she tackles both the online pharmacies and she tackles the easy prescription for telemedicine platforms for doctors. And currently, we do see some effect that people have become a little more careful in the market, especially when the changes were announced in August. And some were confused whether they apply immediately, not being very familiar with a regulatory process and the legislative process in Germany. Now, 6 months after the first proposal of the changes, I think we do see a more detailed and qualified discussion of both these proposals. And it's hard to say where exactly Ms. Wacken and her ministry stands right now, what the eventual outcome will be. But there's good reasons to push back on both changes. And I think especially like the mail order ban kind of makes no sense. Maybe there was a misunderstanding that people thought that we'd have massive shipping from outside Germany, something that German pharmacies are very skeptical about, like Amazon-wise shipment of pharmacies or Doc Morris from the Netherlands. I think now the understanding grew that it's actual one of the smaller pharmacies in Germany that send out to their customers, and it helps their business. So I'd be surprised if they keep the mail order ban. Regarding the very easy prescription via telemedicine platforms, just using questionnaires, I think there will be some regulatory changes. We will see some implementations there that might affect the telemedicine platforms. And I'm sure that Sascha and Philip, given the fact that they run these platforms, they can speak to that.
Thank you. Philippe, I'll go to you now. The same questions, but in particular, in terms of the latest news is that the Bundestag pushed back, right? The Bundesrat and the cabinet had pretty much rubber stamped what she said, but what's the latest changes there? And again, your prognosis in terms of a timetable, if we can guesstimate, by when this gets done. Thank you.
So all in all, I mean, tough to say. There's lots of rumors swirling around. Looks like there's an ongoing debate within the parties in power how to basically tackle the issue at hand. Current thinking is that restrictions won't be as severe as Constantin just outlined. So I also don't foresee that mail order ban because it just doesn't make any sense. So it's lots of local German pharmacies providing local pickup service, but also sending products to patients in need. So there's lots of backlash with regards to that. With regards to telemedicine platforms, there is a discussion whether the ease of access for patients is too easy, so to speak. We, with our telemedicine play in Germany, we do initial video consultations as mandatory or in-person visits since we basically launched that platform. So you could make the argument we would welcome any change because then it's a level playing field with regards to telemedicine platforms. But all in all, it's a bit of crystal ball reading, but I foresee that there won't be a mail order ban and the restrictions for telemedicine won't be as severe. So we're hoping for video consultations once a year, and the rest can be done as it's currently being done with follow-up prescriptions via a questionnaire, so that the change won't be as drastic as initially expected. And it's also interesting to note, so it's somewhat unclear whether telemedicine players based outside of Germany need to play along the same rules. So there's also legal opinions swirling around that platforms based in Cyprus or in Malta maybe can play to different rules also in the future. So lots of uncertainty, but rest assured, at Cantourage, we're fairly optimistic that the market will continue to grow and prices will pick up again. So it was just lots of uncertainty, but the market is picking up again.
But is there a deadline in terms of when this has to get done by, Philip?
So I'm not the expert. Timelines I understood where there's a second and a third hearing are currently earmarked for February and March. And then at some point, the law needs to be finalized and then pass, let's say, the chamber. But this is, to my understanding, but maybe Sascha and Constantin know better than I do, it's somewhat up in the air. So it's not a definite timeline. I think I read a newspaper article last week that Ms. Warken tries to implement that law sometime in 2026. So maybe it's Q4, maybe it's Q3, maybe it gets pushed back to 2027, who knows? All in all, we're well prepared for any change.
And before I go to Sascha, Philippe, in terms of, for the audience, right? Like I said, in different parts of the world, and I know not all telemedicine is the same, but could you give examples of maybe where people have pushed the envelope too far? Like I've heard, and I could be wrong, I've heard that in some cases, you're pretty much dealing with a bot, right? You fill up a questionnaire and you get your prescription even the first time. I don't know if that's true. You gave also example that you can get a prescription from telemedicine platforms outside of Germany, right? So what would be practices that you don't like that you see happening, right? In terms of a level playing field you talked about on the clinic side.
Was it a question to me or to Sascha?
No, to you, Philippe, sorry.
I mean, tough to say. So I don't know, let's say the operating models of other platforms in detail. Rest assured, there's a few that are using questionnaires only. Some of them located in Germany, some of them outside located of Germany.
Right.
If they find an operating model that works, it's fine for me at the end of the day. If they provide access to patients or better access for patients to cannabis medicine, I'm all for it. Because at the end of the day, still to this day, it's pretty challenging to get a cannabis prescription in Germany if you go the regular route, trying to find a doctor in your home city, in your hometown. It's just very, very time consuming or just impossible. So those telemedicine platforms are definitely in dire need, and there should be better access for patients, point blank.
Right.
So I'm nothing against also those survey-only platforms. At the end of the day, it also helps patients.
Right. Okay. Sascha, sorry, on the same question, last but not least.
Yeah, well, I don't have to repeat what my two predecessors said, so I think it's perfectly summarized where policy seems to stand. I have the same timelines in mind than Philip, so I think it's still scheduled to have the second and third reading in the Bundestag in March. That's the current timeline. But I think before that reading, there must be a new draft of the law, because I think the coalition has agreed not to agree to the previous law, so they have to write a new one, and that then has to be discussed and to debated in the Bundestag. So I think it's hard to predict a timeline on that. As the other two, I definitely do not expect online trading to be stopped. And I do expect and truly hope for a more sophisticated discussion around telemedicine providers, because I also agree we do need them, not only for cannabis, but for the German medical system. So it's actually anachronistic to discuss that on cannabis base only. I think there's clear rules around telemedicine and we should apply them. And I feel that the discussion is leading to that. At the same time, and maybe surprising, as a cannabis operator, I'm actually a fan of sharpening the regulations. So I do believe we are in a medical market and a regulated market. So pushing the envelope too far does not do us good as a cannabis industry. And I might less be talking about the operational models rather than about sticking to the advertising laws in medicinal products. And I think by pushing the envelope on that level, some of the telemedicine institutions, they actually kind of started the discussion, which to me has less to do with how the consultation is actually provided, but rather how you position yourself and how you advertise, and with that pretty openly advertise towards consumers, even though I even like that discussion much more. What is a consumer and what is a patient? And sometimes I feel policy is a bit confused to believe that a patient can only be a terminal ill chronic pain patient. I do believe there's definitely right to medication also for sleep deprivation, for depressions, for mental health issues. And I think those people are getting better access now since the reform in 24, and they do get access through telemedicine. So let's sharpen, let's make sure we know what we are doing, but let's definitely not prohibit telemedicine. That would be to row into the wrong direction.
But on that point, and very briefly, what changes on the telemedicine side would you support?
Well, I think what is rightfully discussed is a questionnaire based only consultation/prescription. Not saying that artificial intelligence is very advanced today. So I think you can create questionnaires which are pretty good. But by launching only 3 or 4 questions, that shouldn't be the way to a prescription in Germany. So I would support to sharpen that, to make sure that we have age checks, to make sure that at the very end, the patient had to present conditions which are worthwhile having a cannabis prescription. And that should be clarified how that is done. And I think the most meaningful right now is to make sure there's at least a remote consultation with a real physician being based in Germany. And then you kind of, I think, prevent some of the things we see in the last weeks and months.
Thank you. Look, I'm going to move the discussion now to supply chain. I'll start with Constantin again. There are some questions here that are general in terms of supply chain and more that are company specific. In terms of general questions for you, Constantin, we have the import data and we know the sources, right? But in your opinion, are the sources of supply concentrating or expanding? Are there more suppliers out there or less as companies? In terms of countries, which in your opinion have greater potential to grow? We have the quarterly data, of course. Can Canada maintain its market share versus other countries in Germany? And how has the permit disruptions in Portugal impacted the market? That's in terms of what I call general questions. Regarding your own supply chain, in terms of what you want to share, how many suppliers do you have? Have you had to change suppliers? And are you able to find consistent quality and quantities from your suppliers? Constantin.
Yeah,
and of course, you can also say what % of your sales are your own production versus a third-party supplies, right? Thank you. If you want.
I'm happy to start with that because our quota was lifted from the 1 ton, and that's why we built out the facility. Just last week, we had basically the inauguration of the new part. We now have a capacity of over 4 tons that we can cultivate in Germany. But again, that will probably, even in a good year, only be 30 to 40% of what we process here in our facility and what we sell. The goal is definitely to do more. And that's because the market is growing, and the numbers you mentioned or you're referring to, the INCB reported import quotas for Germany, they go up to 200 tons a year last year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that shows it's a huge demand. I mean, to clarify, this is not what was really imported or exported to Germany. It's the quotas announced, the import permits handed out, but it tells you that the market is growing. And yes, more countries are trying to be part in the game, and more cultivators in countries like Canada or Colombia, South Africa, who are already exporting to Germany, are also trying to get a piece of the cake, right? So there's still a lot of enthusiasm about cultivators internationally. Unfortunately, some of them haven't looked at the data close enough and are not absolutely familiar with the high regulatory hurdles to get product into the European Union. Even if you go through some Portuguese contractor manufacturers, people are paying close attention if you meet all the regulatory requirements. And then, of course, quality matters a lot, and price is also a key factor. And because you asked, we probably have worked with 20 or 30 suppliers, but have a consistent base of far fewer. And it is key to find your trusted suppliers that can meet your demand for consistent supply. Because in the end, what we're doing is we're handling a medicinal product. The patient, the doctors, the prescribers, they expect consistency for their therapy. And that's what the cultivators have to provide. And I think a lot of them struggle with it. I feel for them because we cultivate ourselves. We know how hard it is, but it's important to build a longer lasting relationship. One interesting market that has been in discussion last year, I would point out, is Thailand. I think every single German importer has been to Thailand. I haven't seen much product from Thailand coming into Germany. So again, lots of noise, not that much product yet. I don't know if Sascha and Philip want to shed more light on that, and if they have worked with them more closely. I think in Canada, it's still a very trusted supplier. And yes, some of the Canadian product goes through Portugal. And yes, quite clearly, there was a lot of illicit and wrongdoings that happened in Portugal. I'll be skeptical. I'm surprised by how carefully and how cautiously German regulators have reacted. They are so fierce on us, on our German cultivation. I would have expected them to be a little more rigid with product that comes through various shady supply chains, ends up in Portugal, it's shipped to Germany. And that's where I'm with Sascha. I'd ask for tougher regulation, or at least like tougher enforcement of the existing regulation to keep the playing field at the same level for everyone.
One quick follow-up. When you said you're moving up to 4 tons, that was a new quota for you. Before you were at 1 ton?
Yeah, so the 1 ton was a quota. We were able to do 2 tons, but we're not allowed to sell more than 1 ton. Right. There's no quota anymore. The quota has been lifted. We're just limited by our own capacity, and we built out 4 more grow rooms. So now we are at a capacity of 4.5 tons annually that we can grow in our facility.
Right. And you don't have to answer this, but in terms of your own imports in 2025, you want to give a number? 5 tons, 3 tons, roughly?
Probably a little more than that.
Okay. Philip, the same set of questions for you. I mean, I've read obviously your press releases and your quarterly results. You seem to have a very vast supply chain. Remind the audience if you also have your own production in terms of cultivation. And one question I didn't ask Constantin also, will it make sense for you at some point to buy some of your suppliers just to secure your own supply chain? Philip.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So basically, that's the idea on what Cantourage was founded. So we do everything except or excluding growing, because we do understand growing is very challenging. Also very capital intensive, so to speak. You need to invest heavily into production asset, and then you get a couple of products out if you're lucky. So that's the founding idea of Cantourage. Was there's excellent growers around the world. Hopefully they grow excellent cannabis, but they lack the permits, licenses, and capabilities to manufacture a pharmaceutical good. So hence we came up with the idea for a manufacturing hub in Germany, import raw material, turn it into a medicine, and then sell it all over Europe. That was the initial idea, which was pretty disruptive at that point in time, and also allowed us to sign lots of excellent growers around the globe. So initially was growers from Africa, South America, New Zealand, Australia, but a lot of players obviously from Canada. And we signed north of 75, 80 growers. But I'd say in our current live lineup, maybe 25 to 30 cultivators, mainly coming from Canada. And as Constantin just mentioned, we're also looking for consistent, high quality cannabis, so to speak, which is then hopefully very efficient in terms of manufacturing. So hence we're also looking to streamline our operations in that regard. Doesn't need to be exotic. I think our first import ever was from Jamaica, which was a cool marketing story, but the product was very tough to manufacture. And then oftentimes the raw material is just out of spec and can't be manufactured. So hence we focus on high quality producers delivering consistent raw material on a consistent basis. I'm very happy with the current lineup we have, mostly from Canada. Yeah.
Quick follow-up in terms of Canada, are you able to find enough indoor supply?
Yeah, I think that's not a challenge as of today. I'm very happy with, again, our current roster. Lots of them, let's say in Canadian terms, are rather smaller outfits or craft growers. I'm very happy if they would increase their capacities in order to get more of their product into Germany. But all in all, we're sourcing, as mentioned, from 25, 30 players, which is sufficient to supply our European target markets.
Thank you. Sascha, on the same question, if you can remind the audience, you being, I think, one of two or three with GMP facilities in Germany also, right? But go on. Yeah.
No, I think you have. I'm pretty much sitting on this panel, right? So, so as the others, so we today have a, let's say, plan A of around 25 suppliers we constantly import from 10 countries and 3 continents. We try to spread, let's say, over the world. Yes, Canada is an important piece of our supply chain. And we are trying to sophisticate and partner with our suppliers. So as Constantin alluded to, in the German setting, being a medicinal market, we kind of depend on sustainability, on patients being able to get the same cultivar, the same quality again. So we don't like spot buying, which unfortunately the Canadian market has become a bit too close to. So we tend to also go away from Canadian markets to the more low-cost countries, build partnerships, and try to establish supply chains, which we can also moderate a bit closer. And again, if we look at the total picture, I think it's 50% stemming from Canada, and then from the 25% stemming from Portugal. Actually, another 50% were from Canada. So I think Canadian import has been 60-65% of German imports. Is that the future? Well, who am I to predict that? I think there's a lot of capacity and there's good economies of scale, which helps the Canadians. But at the same time, Canada is not exactly a low-cost country. So I do see, especially South Africa, as a very, very interesting geography for supply, as well as Latin America. So we are trying to diversify in that regard and making sure that we have our suppliers close to us. And to your question, do we consider vertical integration? About a year ago, I would have said no. Right now, I would say very, very strongly we consider it in the given picture of the supply puzzle. And again, many companies trending to more spot sell their product. That becomes a thing to us to eventually secure our supply chain under our own leadership.
Right. Because few have done that so far, right? Except for Curaleaf with Northern Green, right? And I guess you would say High Tide and Remexian, but that's a bit different because High Tide are a retailer, they are not a grower. So it's like the opposite.
They're not growing. Exactly. It's not really vertically integrated. It's an acquisition of a German operator. And Curaleaf, yes, is running a facility which, however, processes more than it cultivates, right? So it cultivates, but it also processes.
Right. Interesting. So look, just moving the discussion now to market growth so far in Germany, pricing and consolidation. I'll stay with you, Sascha. I'm going to read out the questions. Import data for Q25 will only be out in February, but what is your expectation for growth? Any signs of the market slowing in terms of dollar sales growth? What's happening with pricing? Is it bottoming or still falling? Any changes in terms of formats away from flower, other formats, or is it about potency? And I know there's a lot here, but who's benefiting from market growth? Is it independent players or some of the large Canadian licensed producers? And in terms of industry consolidation, do you expect more M&A in 2026? We saw the High Tide Remexian deal, but we haven't seen much of what you talked about, which is companies like yourselves going out and buying cultivators. But I'll stay with you, Sascha. Whatever you can touch on there on those questions about market outlook, growth trends.
I started noting down too late, so I might have not grasped all the 12 questions. Let me start with market size last year. I think that was your first question. So the quota, I think German imports last year will have landed somewhere between 180 and 200 tons would be my guesstimation. So we were at 168 already when then the bee farm had to close the imports for a while, which delayed some of the later imports. So again, I'd say 180 to 200 tons eventually. We do have a bit of historical data. Again, no clear data, but don't confuse import for sales. So I do believe of those imports, eventually 60%, if at all, have been actually sold into Germany. My guesstimation would actually be a bit less because we saw so many disruptions in the supply chain and then so many last instant imports out of Portugal, etc., where product with very short shelf life landed in Germany. So I would expect that many of those products got destroyed. Some of it get always manufactured into extract or other form factors, and some of it get re-exported, like by us, into UK, Switzerland, or other countries. So my estimation would be that the market as such has been 100 to 120 tons, not more. Do we see it slowing down? We saw it slowing down a bit November, December, when the discussion around the reform has been a bit more polemic. We saw pharmacies a bit hesitating, trying to reduce inventories. We do see that taking up again since January, because I think everybody noticed that the discussion is becoming more meaningful and more to the point. So I think this day, nobody expects the market to be prohibited in 2 months, right? So I think we are back to normal, and normal in Germany means very, very dynamic growth. Pricing, well, sadly, has come down a bit, which I think is a product of that dynamic. So some of it is normal, some of it, and I think Constantin mentioned that earlier, unfortunately, by some of the more, I wouldn't say illicit, but let's say not that strictly controlled supply chains, a lot of product of sometimes doubtful quality entered the German market at very low pricing. And that didn't help the market, because that created an expectation with patients, with stakeholders, that this would be the new normal. And it's not, because if you want to grow cannabis under certain quality standards, there is a price point to that. There's participants in the market who need to earn a little bit of money to be able to survive. So I think we have reached bottom, by also sharpening regulations, making sure that some of this product will not further enter the market, I think we should stabilize on the current level. And please repeat some of your last questions, Pablo.
Any questions on M&A? I mean, we haven't seen that much. I mean, we saw High Tide and Revexian. What type of M&A would you expect, if any?
Well, we are still, I think, waiting for a bit of consolidation in the German market. I believe I see it happening as we speak. So I think we will see a bit less players and some of the major players dominating the market, and maybe some of the very small ones disappearing. I do see interest from the US and Canada to, let's say, deepen their access into international markets, and M&A and/or investment and/or partnerships is an option to do that, which I can only encourage. I think it's a very good idea. And as much as I wouldn't dare to run the Canadian market from Germany, I would strongly recommend to partner with a strong German player to actually win in the German/European market. And we do see this happening. How it ends up, if it's always an acquisition, I think that's a tough cookie, because the stock prices in Canada are still under pressure. We have our valuations, so to just buy us might be a tough cookie. But there's other ways of partnering and of investing into the German landscape, and I do see that happening. Well, also with us, right? So there's talks going on.
Right. Constantin, on the same set of questions, whatever you want to add on the topic.
Well, I think Sascha gave a very comprehensive answer. Maybe adding on the M&A side, yes, I think we do see, and I personally hear a lot of discussions around proposed sales, interest for acquisitions. We get a lot of calls, way more than before. Right now, given a regulatory uncertainty over the next couple of months, I don't think anything is going to happen right now. Maybe some fire sales required. Somebody has to get rid of an asset, but I think meaningful deals probably only see after we have clarity in Germany, and also once we have more clarity in the US. I think if a rescheduling in the US and a Safe Banking Act actually will go through, I think that some of the Americans will make a move, will be able to make a move, and some of them consider Germany just as another state of the US, right? Another state with different regulation, another market where they could enter, a market with over 80 million people that's thriving on the medical cannabis side. It's like 4 or 5 times the size of Florida. And so there's a lot of interest there. When I was in Chicago last year at Benzinga, there was a lot of interest for the German market. Unfortunately, still the regulatory uncertainties on both sides, Germany and the US, are hindering any quick moves right now.
Yeah, thank you. Philippe, the same set of questions, whatever you want to add in terms of where we are with the market right now.
There's not a lot to add. So
Yeah.
also very comprehensive analysis by the Constantin and Sascha. Maybe just to quickly add, we also see that the market in Germany is definitely still growing. It's not like the growth was stunted. Bit of uncertainty Q3 and Q4. Pharmacies offloading inventories, but sales are picking up again, definitely. And remains to be seen with regards to pricing. So we call it premium segment, which is rather robust with regards to pricing. That's where we also make most of our hay. But severe price compression in the value segment. Let's see if that's sustainable for players in that segment, or pricing will also pick up, as mentioned, if regulation also tightens, or some of the players need to exit the market because they can't make a profit. So let's see what happens, but demand is definitely there, and demand is still increasing. And then if prices pick up, we're all very happy men on this call. Yeah, so all in all, it's not gloom and doom in Germany, quite the contrary. So demand is definitely there, and if the regulatory framework doesn't change as drastic, it's going to be also an exciting year in Germany, that's for sure.
That's good. Thank you. Look,
maybe one thing to add, if I may, is just if you broaden the perspective, if you go a little bit beyond Germany, and because that's when you started out to see the European market more as such, because it is becoming a more European market. I think that's the interesting perspective to look at, and not only seeing a German player that exports and sells to the UK, but the integration that Cantourage and these groups are pushing forward between the UK and Germany, or Portugal and Germany. And if you look on the deal side, I think it was Kronos who bought that Dutch company that was participating in the pilot project, and the Dutch pilot project. There's suddenly numbers which are interesting, even for an acquisition. And so if you look at Germany in the broader sense and give it a view beyond 2026, the next 3-5 years, what is the actual outlook of this market, medical and pilot projects, then suddenly it's interesting. And combine that with the prospect of regulatory change in the US, then you have an interesting situation.
Right. Thank you. Look, we do have a lot of questions that are coming through. I want to talk also market structure, pharmacies, doctor scripts, but let's jump straight to some company-specific questions. In terms of what you can answer, I'll start with you, Philippe, first. And I think you touched on some of this already, but I'll read them out again. Can you discuss your growth in 2025? Any guidance you've given for 2026? What changes have you made to your operations in Germany over the past 2 years? Can you discuss your route to market capabilities, say people, salespeople, your reach of pharmacies, clinics? What do you estimate is your share of the German market? And how much of your German business comes from your own imports versus redistribution of other importers? Whatever you can share, Philippe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll try to answer most of the questions. I actually noted down a couple of answers here. As mentioned, if we just look at the bare numbers of the Cantourage Group, 2025, roughly 50 million euros revenue, 2024, and in 2025, a current market estimate is roughly 90 million. So we grew massively last year. And as mentioned, we're always dancing around being break even, 2024, 2025, EBITDA positive, which also should set us apart from most of our peers. As mentioned, we are a public company, and we have not yet provided a guidance for 2026, but especially UK and Poland, very optimistic about our future performance there. And in Germany, we are, due to our operating model, very flexible and agile to react swiftly to any market change. As of now, we're doing pretty well. If there's no change, also very, very optimistic about our chances in Germany. So all in all, Cantourage Group in a pretty good position as one or the pan-European player to play a very dominant role in the European medical cannabis market. In terms of changes to our operating model, as mentioned, from a sourcing perspective, initially we were looking for cultivators around the globe. For the time being, lots of focus on our Canadian partners, consistent, high-quality product, which helps also down the value chain, so we become more efficient and less cost on our end in order to manufacture the product. So we're also streamlining our operations in that regard. We also integrated additional EU manufacturers because we ran out of capacity in Germany, as mentioned. So in Portugal, in other geographies, in order to have sufficient capacity, but also be flexible in order to get product into our target markets. You asked for the last 2 years. I mean, and it's also worth mentioning. So we launched a telemedicine platform in Germany called Demecan, which is also important to us. And we further built out our cannabis clinic in the UK, which is also helping us there. With regards to sales, so lucky me, being at our team in the UK or our team in Germany, they've been active in cannabis space basically since the inception of those markets. So very strong relationships with the key players, especially on the pharmacy side. So very strong ties to the leading players in order to push sales. And on the other hand, I'd say very lucky that most of our products also speak for themselves. So we focus on high quality products, which are just highly sought after, that makes sales fairly easy. The sales team won't like it, but I'd say it's fairly easy to sell some of our products at least.
You want to say of the 90 million in sales you talked about for 25, how much of that was Germany? Let's say if it was 70, how much of the German sales were your own imports versus redistribution of other importers? And again, whatever you want to disclose, Philip, I understand.
Exactly. So we didn't disclose that publicly, but it's fair to say a very large chunk comes out of our own imports. In Q1 and Q2, where we basically ran out of product. We also engaged in terms of wholesaling other companies' products. But as our supply improved, as we engaged in less of those deals. But also for the future, given our strong partnership with certain pharmacies, happy also to engage in wholesale activities if the commercials make sense from a Cantourage perspective. But all in all, mainly or most of the hay we make with our own products.
Right. Thank you, Philip. And just one quick follow-up in terms of funding. Can you talk about how you're funding your business? Is cash burn an issue? How would you describe market conditions to access debt and equity capital?
So lucky us. So I think in total we raised less than 9 million euros to get where we currently at. So we had 2 financing rounds and then went public. So we always tried to be profitable. We're always dancing around being break even. And for the last couple of years, EBITDA positive and can finance, let's say, our operations and all our projects out of our cash flow. As mentioned, we didn't invest into a growing facility. I know it's very expensive and very challenging to operate. So we focused on other parts of the supply chain, which is less capital intensive. And also, I think we came up with an interesting model with regards to working capital. So all in all, didn't require too much cash. And now being cash positive, we can finance what we planning to do out of our cash flow.
Thank you. Sascha, I mean, you have my questions, so no one will read them out, but whatever else you want to share and disclose about Canify, based on the questions that I sent to you specifically.
Well, as we are not publicly traded, I'm even a bit shyer than Philip, but I think there's some indicators I can mention.
Don't be shy.
So we did grow 250% in 2025 over 24. We have imported, processed, and sold double-digit tons last year. So we actually came from one of the smaller into what I would guess is the top 5 these days in Germany. So we are very proud of our traction last year. We are EBIT positive, and I second Philip. That's, I think, still not that often in the cannabis industry. So we can finance our own operations. Well, you can never have enough working capital, so I would love to have more, which is also why we are still in a Series B, which we started in October and will close in Q1. We have some term sheets out and are very confident that we will do some meaningful things in the next weeks. And in terms of structures, where we discuss the reforms to be expected, which is why We are heavily investing and scaling our own clinics platform, as this clinics platform has German-based doctors. So we have basically scaled the number of physicians we have in our network. We do interact with them completely compliant to also what we expect to be the new regulations. And we do expect patients to look for real remote consultations again, and we will offer and are already offering it now. So we see already now many patients migrating into remote consultations, and we do believe that we can scale that business very soon. Then, as I alluded to, we are looking at our supply chain, looking for strong partnerships in order to not be exposed to spot sales and, let's say, challenging and changing supply chains. You can call that vertical integration, you can call it partnership. So we are entertaining all of these options, but are looking to get in more direct control of what we import and supply. And last but not least, we as Canify are one of the few companies trying to also do R&D and innovate. So yes, we earn an honest buck with the flower sales, which we reinvest into developing new form factors. And with form factors, I don't mean Cannabis 2.0, which unfortunately in Germany is very hard to digest. I'm talking about our sublingual spray, which is a fully reimbursed and medical play. And I'm talking about the inhalative device we are developing and launching end of 27, which will be a fully certified EMA granted license, which so far does not exist in the German market. So we do believe that there's still room for innovation, or not still room for innovation. There's actually a high demand for innovation, especially when it comes to doctors, because let's be honest, the current market in Germany is mostly privately paid and out-of-pocket paid. And if we look at the physician-based market, there's still a lot to do. And physicians are definitely waiting for innovation and still uncomfortable with a flower product only. So we're trying to work on that.
Thank you. Constantin, you also have my questions in terms of whatever else you want to disclose about Demecan, but you have my question.
Sure. I mean, we're also private and love to be a little secretive about all these numbers. Nevertheless, for us, 2025 was also a very successful year. So very proud to have doubled the revenue, and we're profitable, nice numbers. And I think things are going very smoothly, and we're looking very optimistic into 2026. Will this massive growth, like we doubled in the last 3 years, will that continue in 2026? Let's see and have a look at the regulatory changes. I think they will drive the market development. I think one thing we focused on in last year was to develop our rosin, like a new form of cannabis extract, very successfully. Doctors loved it, and so that's probably along the lines what Sascha says. There is a lot of room and need for development. I think the full potential of cannabis as a real medicine and as a proper substitution for other drugs, more harmful drugs, such as opioids, for example, still has to be discovered by lots of doctors. And I think the medical market alone has vast potential, but it has to be a really strictly medical market. We tend to speak of the phytopharmaceuticals rather than medical cannabis, because cannabis, the word alone seems to have some connotation with doctors. But I think if you convince them, we will move beyond the flower. We already have with rosin, companies looking at inhalers, extracts, some sublingual sprays. I'm very excited to hear that, Sascha. I think that's something the market needs, and that's definitely something that we at Demecan also look at. The R&D side and is definitely big, and that's something where we actually also raise money for. Other than that, we can fund our operations and even our growth from the existing cash flow.
Thank you. Look, I'm going to read some questions from the audience. Anyone can answer, just brief answers. There's 2 or 3 questions around pricing. Someone asking, like, what would be, if we know the tons of the market, right? What would be the average price you take on that, specifically for flower? And, do we expect more price compression in 2026? Anyone on that question? Brief.
I think, Sascha, you mentioned we reached bottom with the price compression already.
Do you guys
kind of agree with that?
Do you agree?
I think if you just read, not talking about single companies, but I hope my co-panelists would agree that The price to patient in the self-paying segment is somewhere between 7 and 12 euros these days. So kind of around the black market price. And that's the situation we have right now. I don't feel there's a need to further bring that price down. And apparently that's not necessarily the demand of the market. You can get cannabis cheaper, but that's then the cannabis we were mentioning before, which in my opinion should not even reach the German market. But if you look at the per patient price, well, there's a public website called Flows, which is not always right, just to warn everybody, because I'm often confronted with analysis from that website. They do a good job, but let's be also careful in how we interpret it. But you can basically see the prices to patients there. And I don't know, Philip, Constantin, correct me, but I think we are at a patient level price of somewhere between 7 and then for very good product above 10 euros.
But you said 7 to 12, right? But I mean, the average I hear is 7 to 8. I mean, Sascha, do you want to clarify that? I mean, what would be the average?
No, I'm just talking the range, right? So as with every product which is self-paid, it depends a bit on the potency, on the quality of the product, what you're willing to pay, and that is reflected in a self-pay set.
Right. But if I want to size up the market, Constantin or Philippe, what price do I use? 7, 8, 9? If I have the number of tons, times what? What would be the price you use, average price?
No. I'd say so. If we talk about that value segment, which is just there, and we can make the argument, should all those flowers be in the market? But I think the patient price that is also a lot lower. We're seeing products being sold for less than 4 euros a gram,
right,
on a patient level. So that's where the market actually dropped down to, which was a sharp decline in pricing, I think in Q3 and Q4. And that segment is there. And let's see how long those prices will be sustainable for the future. But it definitely goes up to the 12, 13, 14 euros a gram for very high quality product. But I think the range and agree to disagree is a bit wider. I'd say
that's
4
good
to 12
color.
euros.
But if I were to take a median, if I said, I mean, because we comb the Flows website very thoroughly, very often, but my median is 7. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree.
But I think it's very polarized, and there's lots of volume, and obviously in that very cheap segment.
And that's why you shouldn't overinterpret, right? So people are selling short shelf life. There was product coming in tonnages with 3-4 weeks of shelf life left from Portugal. Well, before you throw it away, you sell it at dumping price. And that's what I meant with price eventually correcting upwards, because as supply chains stabilize again, we might not see some of the desperate movements we have seen in 2024.
Right. Look, well, I mean, I know we're running out of time. There's 2 questions here are related. Someone says, what is your view of current trends by some brands to use influencer marketing to create awareness and drive patients to those brands? And someone asking a related question saying, do you see any new regulations restricting marketing and advertisements to patients, consumers, or stricter enforcement of existing rules in 2026? Anyone? I know there's 2 different questions.
If an influencer talks about your product, you're better not related to it, right? So we have clear laws in Germany. This is a medical product. Influencers are not supposed to be paid by me to talk about my product, period.
Right.
If they do it on their own.
Strict enforcement.
Yeah. And that's actually what brought us to some of the discussions we're having today, that the envelope is pushed a bit too hard.
Someone else asking, do you think the valuation multiple of a high-tide Remexian transaction is representative of valuations in the German market?
Can you remind me of the valuation?
I should go back and look it up myself. But okay. Anyone? I did write on it at the time, but I don't have it in front of me. I think we want to skip that.
Can't comment on that.
As the numbers of Remexian have not been public, it's very hard to actually the press release is hard to read. So I don't actually know what has been multiplied by what, and I don't know the needs to sell and or buy. So it's very hard.
Okay. I know it's tough to talk about competitors, but Sascha or anyone, do you want to make any comments on the Remexian business for people to have some context about that deal, or rather not?
Rather not.
Okay. All right. For Philippe, given your presence in both the UK and German markets, are there meaningful differences in how margins and markups are captured across the value and supply chain in those 2 markets? Again, if you want to answer, Philippe.
I mean, it's different markets, so to speak. The UK is, as for the time being, maybe less competitive, but more and more players entering the UK market. I think the typical cannabis patient in UK has lots and lots of knowledge, and they're really looking for, let's say, innovative, special, high quality product. Hence, pricing is also a bit different than the German market. Yeah, tough to say. It's just for the time being, it's a lot smaller, but it's a fast growing and very exciting market, the UK.
Right. Thank you. Look, I know we're out of time. We'll just move to closing remarks. Whatever you want to add. The only question I would add to the three of you, if someone were to ask you in terms of M&A landscape, is your company more of a buyer, a seller? How do you see yourself play or entering partnerships like Sascha mentioned? How do you, to the audience out there, and as you know, the audience is very varied, but, how should people think of your companies in the future context of M&A in Europe, which I think we all expect? But closing remarks, I'll start with Sascha.
So yeah, well, I would consider ourselves a partner for any international investor out there. We definitely are a nice investment vehicle because we are multiplying our revenues and will multiply our valuation. So I think our Series B offering is more than attractive. But beyond that, in terms of partnership and access to the international environment, I think we are a very strong competitor with very unique features. And I can only invite to look at that. And as a closing remark, I think we are at the edge of supply chains changing, regulations being streamlined in Germany. So I think it's the perfect moment to move. I'm very, very strongly convinced that the new law in Germany will not interrupt the growth. It might dip it a bit, but it will not change the market. I think this train cannot be stopped again. So I'm more than bullish and confident. We are reconsidering our future, and I think I can speak for all of the German companies. And again, we are looking for strong partners to do so.
I'm sorry, Sascha, when you say you're reconsidering your future, did you want to elaborate in that sense?
No, we are growing. We're growing very fast. So I have to look at my structures. I have to look into my stock book, into my investments, and how I fuel that growth into the future. So I feel we have a strong momentum. I want to make use of that. To make use of that, we for sure need working capital and room to maneuver. And as I said, we are looking for partners to do so. We are not to be acquired, but we are to be partnered.
Understood. Thank you very much. Constantin, closing remarks, and also, how you see yourself playing in the M&A field.
Sure. Probably regarding the German market, more a buyer or a partner. I'd like to see Demecan also as a target for pharmaceutical companies if they ever become really interested in the cannabis as a proper medical drug and in the life science game. But I think we're still a couple of years out from that. In the meantime, 2026 is going to be interesting again, more regulatory changes. The long or midterm trajectory, the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be very, very positive in Germany and in Europe. I'm very convinced about that. I think we'll see substantial growth in the European market. I'll be in France in February for a conference there in Paris. So I think there's a lot happening. Keep your eyes open for the European market. It's interesting. And maybe one last remark. The debate is on medical cannabis. This panel is medical cannabis players, but there are things happening also on the consumer side in Germany. So we have another couple of years in this legislation in Germany. I think things will happen also on the consumer side. Maybe that's a discussion for another panel.
Thank you. Philippe?
Yeah, all in all, I think we like our positioning as the pan-European cannabis company, and do like our chances to grow by ourselves. So not currently engaged in any M&A activities. If we were to do so, it's rather potentially being a buyer of an innovative company with regards to new innovations, being it new form factors or something of that sort, in order to come, let's say, introduce new exciting product formats into the market. But all in all, we believe in our strength to further build out that pan-European platform we're currently sitting at.
Philip, I mean, on that point, I know we're way past our time here, but has being public help you, hinder you, or not really made a big difference?
I'd say the jury is still out. So initially it was definitely helping, put us, let's say, on the map, lots of interest, also helped basically finding lots and lots of partners across the globe. Yeah, also helped us professionalize our organization, let's say from finance to investor relations to business to marketing. So we did our homework and our well-structured, now systematic company that's enabled to scale and further grow. So definitely made us do our homework and hopefully can reap the benefits also in the foreseeable future. For the time being, as every single CEO, I'm not that happy with our valuation. Doesn't reflect our business performance, but working tirelessly on changing that. So we'll also be at the conference in Paris and a few capital market conferences in Germany, but also in Italy, in France this year, just to get a word out, because I think we do have an exciting story. Just more investors need to hear that, and then our valuation should also pick up.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our three speakers. Thank you to the audience for joining us, and sorry that we way past the hour here. Everyone, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you.